excited to bring on stage the fantastic Jane Campion. Wow and wow. So, I have had the great pleasure. My name is Kimberly Peirce. I'm also a film writer and director, and very proud of our new theater. And I had the great fortune of seeing this movie a few months ago at Netflix's beautiful screening room, and was totally blown away. And we started a conversation in Telluride, which has left me pretty spellbound, and I just resaw the movie. So I kind of want to say to Jane, if there's anything in particular after all these Q&As that you want to talk about, I'd love to hear, and obviously I have questions prepared and new thoughts, but is there anything that comes to you in the middle of all of this?
Well, this is a surprise. The word preparation comes to my mind. Actually, I was thinking about, doing a few Q&As does lead you to think about what you're saying, what you're talking about, and what you've done. And I was thinking about meeting the directors and about to do a round table or something, and I really can't wait to talk to them about the issues that really affect us, and I believe quite a few people here are directors as well. But it's just that amazing burden of imagination that is the work that I think of directing, really. When you begin to work with your script or anybody's script and you start to know you're going to have to manifest it somehow. And you have to imagine how it's going to be, and you have to imagine that, sometimes without even knowing what your locations are or who your actors are. So it's quite a work, and I actually think it's pretty stressful. You have to imagine it in all sorts of weather. You don't have the luxury usually of choosing the weather that you're going to have, or figuring out what scenes you want to protect. Like, this scene just must be done in beautiful weather. We have to shift everything around to do it, and you say that to your first assistant, and they sort of nod at it's probably not going to be possible. And just just the work of imagining and protecting, and supporting, and then the actors arrive, nobody's quite ready, everything looks shambolic, and you are sort of imagining beyond to where we are now and giving people the grace to grow, to become what they need to be, and you're imagining, in a way it's that act of faith that is so important for the director to have, so that people can grow into that faith and find their feet. And then once the film actually starts, I can actually remember saying to my first assistant on the first day of shooting, after this sort of massive imagination work, and also drawing and imagining the scene in every sort of different way, I just don't know how to do this. I just can't imagine now how it can actually happen. How does it actually work? I just can't seem to see it, And he said, Jane, we're going to do it the way we've always done it. We're going to put the camera down, we're going to put some people in front of it, and we're going to shoot it. So, okay, yes, that's right. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. And it's sort of this miracle that happens when you're sort of thinking, I don't really know what I'm doing, I don't know why I'm here. But you're faking along with the rest of us. And then you start to look through the lens and you immediately go, oh no, that's not right, this should be here. Something sort of takes over, and this sort of sense of play and knowing that comes through, which is my favourite thing. Just feeling that excitement and playfulness on the set, when you start to feel that, and the energy and the delight of images coming to life. and actors coming in and surprising you. And anyway, so the day one of shooting is the end of the burden of imagination, and it's the beginning of the, whatever you're manifesting. So that's a bit of something.
I mean, that's gorgeous, right? But it's so interesting because my first question was about what grabbed you about the story. Even if you can go back in a seminal kind of director moment of, was there something, an image, a feeling that grabbed you? And as you say, it's so beautiful that you get to the point of almost shooting and you have to then be scared or surrender it in order to find the play. Is there anything that in particular evolved in an unexpected way?
So my journey with the material was based, first of all, on just this enormous respect that I had for the work that Thomas Savage did with this novel. It's not easy to find a really great narrative. I don't know what you think about this, but I think it's...
Okay, so that's interesting. You don't think it's necessarily a great narrative. I think it's fundamentally powerful.
Oh, I think the narrative is myself, but I don't know what they think.
And the myth. Well, maybe you shaped it more, but the myth that you came up with, and particularly seeing it the second time and being even more mesmerized. Like, I'm amazed at what you distilled it into.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, but my first thing is like, oh my God, this is Thomas Savage's life, You can feel it in the work, in the source material, and I believe it. And it's such, I don't know what to say, it's just such a sturdy base for me to begin with. And no matter how we peel this onion, this story, it never failed us. You never got to the bottom of it. There was always more, it was always interesting. It always, like, the themes stuck together. It wasn't like, ooh, no, let's open that door. That's not going to get us anywhere good. It just works, the story just works, and, in a thematic way, in a way where the characters are stretched and exposed and come to a crisis and, in fact, to an end, and it's sort of a really tragic portrait at heart. And one of the I suppose inspirations that I use, because I love to actually collect materials as well. Like, I love to go outside of film, because when you just go like, oh, let's look at some films to inspire me. Then you have that feeling of like copying, You don't want to do that. So I like to go to art, not even photographs if possible, because they're more expressive. And I looked at a lot of Lucy and Freud, and I kept, remembering Phil bathing naked in the water and that sort of.
You did a great job, because I immediately thought of those bodies.
Yeah,
in the water. Yeah.
And I remember thinking, Phil, you're not fooling me. I'm going to get your clothes off. And you are beautiful underneath, all that. You're dangerous and you're beautiful and you're a lover.
And all that intimacy, particularly in that scene, him with the scarf.
Yeah.
With the Bronco Henry, the B&H on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's, Benedict just shocked me with, really, when we did that work. I mean, we were in the rehearsal room and he was playing around with the scarf. He was like, as Phil, a little bit irritated with it to begin with, and he was saying, oh, this doesn't feel very good. I was going like, oh no. Ben, it's silk, And he said, well, I don't care what it is, it doesn't feel very good. And I said, Ben, I want you to love this. I want you to find a way to love this silk scarf, because it belonged to Bronco. Whatever it feels like, it's Bronco's gift, that's all you've got of him.
And what did you get when you said that?
It snarled a little bit. But, I just left it there. And then later he told me, I can't remember ever saying anything about the scarf. But, I think that is an act of defence as well, that quite often, with their props, they can be really fussy because they're feeling like have to lean into them, have to be inspired by them, and that, they're agitated by the fact that it might not feel absolutely perfect. I remember with Holly Hunter when we did the piano that we had, the film piano, was a very old style of like table piano and actually really quiet. And when she came in and she played it, she actually walked out of the rehearsal room. And we were like, we were just not New Zealanders going, what's happening? The stars left. Later on I rang her up and said, well, what's the matter? Whatever is wrong, we'll do something to fix it. And she said, I'm not speaking this film. And my piano is like a whisper. I said, don't worry, it's going to be all replaced. And she said, what replaced? ADR, I said, no, we'll make the piano. We'll make it louder, whatever. But, there's a lot of anxiety.
On your part or on their part? On everybody's part?
On everybody's part. And, I sort of see the director's role as, I see my role is to try and just love them no matter what, and know that they are out there, they're going to be exposed, and I have loved them because I do see the courage that's there, and it is the courage in actors, it is their talent, it is that capacity to get in that flow, that more often than not you're not in the flow. You're on your way to the flow, or it's just not quite happening, and so you're going to look a bit idiotic at times as an actor, or it's not idiotic to be wanting to be in the flow, but you can feel a bit, isn't quite there. So you have to be able to withstand a lot of mistakes. And I think that's what directing is. It's like making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake.
And do you feel like you know when the flow is hitting you and when it's not? You can kind of tell when it's there?
Yeah. I don't know, actors always know, interestingly. But I decided, at one point to really get a listening for what they were doing. And I think it was about the stage I did Bright Star, when I was really wanting a more relaxed performance and was not accepting anything that I just didn't totally believe. So I just told myself, I'm not going to react unless I really believe what's happening.
So you kind of force them to earn it, or to bring it out, or to be in a place that you could relate?
It wasn't a trick or anything, it was just honest. Yeah, so it did work like that, though, that they would, to begin with, I didn't even know quite what the problem was, but I knew I didn't believe what was going on, in the rehearsal room. And I think with period drama, you get that a lot more. People want to hold teacups and things in odd ways. It's true. And then finally, like it was 2 or 3 days now, getting quite agitated, and Ben was just sort of sitting at a desk or something, not doing anything, just sort of looking at a spot on the ground. And I noticed myself really attentively watching him. And I thought, oh, I believe this guy. And it's sort of, like it's attention, you take your attention away from things that feel fake, right? So it's that learning not to reward fakeness, But you don't have to actually learn to do it because you actually aren't interested.
But to allow yourself to occupy the space of not being interested is profound on a movie set.
We're just in the rehearsal room where we, work it up, and then I'd say, hey, what are you doing? I'm really interested in what's happening, and then just sort of say it, and then they start to be confident that it's okay to do nothing. It comes down to it's okay to do nothing, just to be. That being is the most fascinating thing ever. Do you guys know what I mean?
I can hear they know. And what about the scene, there's so many brilliant scenes, but particularly when he has the arsenic and he's put it onto the ropes and they're having that moment together where you go around them.
Yeah, that was an interesting scene actually, and pleased you noticed that one, because I was concerned with that scene that we didn't, like it read very well in the book, but, there's one scene I got up on its feet in the rehearsal room, and that's something I often do with scenes that I'm a little suspicious of.
What were you suspicious of?
That it was an important moment and it mightn't work.
And did it not work?
And how was the camera going to work with what they were doing? I had imagined that scene and I just couldn't quite feel it. I was imagining it from distance, from close, from all the different things, and I started to think that I had to get in there with it, I had to follow in, and that was done with a steady camera. We just went around, I think it's about 2 shots really in the end. But we did quite a number of takes on it. And anyway, in the rehearsal room, we did strike some problems. It just didn't seem to be anything when he, it's such a big deal in the book when Peter puts his hand on Phil. And, but in reality, in the rehearsal room, it just didn't seem like much, I was thinking, well, how am I going to do it with the camera or whatever? And I had my choreographer with me, because I had this idea about having a choreographer around. He was a fabulous, beautiful spirited guy who worked in a modern dance way, we'd observe human behaviour and to come up with his pieces. So he's a very good observer of people, and he was saying, "Oh, do you mind if I watch?" I said, "No, come and watch." We don't know what we're doing, maybe you can help. And he said, while he was watching for a while, he said, "Oh, you know what, there's this thing that we do in dancing that I really love, but when a man puts his hand around a woman's neck, just on the neck, and we all listen to him and say, oh, okay, we'll give that a go." And it's because it's what you might do if you're about to kiss someone.
It definitely feels like we're leading into some kind of possible sensual or sex scene. So then what happened?
Yeah. So, well, we used that, and I do think it lifted the stakes quite a lot. And then because we shot the 2 scenes one after the other quite close by, and Kodi smit-mcphee had the smart idea to go straight back into the barn. So we actually shot into the pieces of the strips later, and Ben wasn't expecting them. So he just turned up the back of the barn, and the scene continued. And that was nice. That was nice of Kodi to think of that. So that scene, we're all sort of hiding in one of the stalls, looking at a little, monitor in the barn, and I was crouching there with Tanya, who was beside me quite a bit, and we were going like, "What do you think? Do you think it's working?" So I'm just not sure. And, at times I thought that, we did it so often we couldn't remember what we're doing actually. But it was probably shot about 20 times.
What changed as you kept shooting it?
Well, it was really beautiful to notice, for me anyway, that the guys just really kept at it. They'd fade off, and then they'd find some new energy. I have read about how some directors do 70 takes or something like that, but that's not been my habit. I like to do more than one, just in case there's some mistake. But maybe between sort of 3 and 5, and the actors ask for another one, I go, yeah, right on, sure. 7, but so this was a lot of takes for me, and I really did need them all. It was really interesting later in the edit, yeah. But they did steam up to sort of some real emotion, and then they moved off it, and and it was the more emotional takes that worked the best,
So you were building throughout the takes to this emotional...
I didn't tell them to do anything, actually.
In the editing room.
In the editing room, we just looked at everything, same thing. What do I believe? What do I believe? I don't believe that. I believe this moment. I believe that hand just, holding and then re-holding, these little things. So it's to me all about what can I lean on, what do I trust, you know?
The vulnerability in the movie is extraordinary. I mean, and I feel the movie go into a kind of high gear, particularly that time when he's on the horse and he almost falls, you know, when he's riding down.
Oh, down to find the cow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. I feel like from that point forward, it's just so clear that he's on this objective.
Yeah, I think probably that's from watching it once already. Yeah. I think it's quite hard to know what's going on the first time. And I mean,
I don't think you do know. I mean, that was what was amazing.
I don't know how you could know. So yeah.
But in rewatching it, you're so painstaking about laying the clues and the movements forward.
Yeah.
And we're so caught up in it.
Yeah, I think that's my job, to try and, you know, keep this tentpoles in the right spot, so when you go back, it's still up there.
So suspense, which is something that amazes me about your work, because I'm a big fan of everything she's done, but particularly the piano, where you give us, she talks in the beginning very much like he does, and kind of lays the groundwork for, I think, what's to come, right? Because doesn't he say, my father died and I had to protect my mother?
Something of that kind.
Yeah, so we know there's a danger coming, we just don't know where it's going to spring at us. That is quite amazing to me. Even in re-seeing it, I'm just like, oh God, what's going to happen? Even though I know what's going to happen. So do you want to talk about pressing the gas on suspense and too much, not enough, because it's so perfectly calibrated?
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing with suspense, that you have to figure out how to calibrate it, because you know, the story's got too much of an engine. I mean, it's not like the engine of the piece, you know, what sort of purr it has, or is it going to speed up towards the end? And I think this one is a slow start and then it accelerates. And it's to do with, like, you know, how much information you need to put through it. And, you know, if you've got a very high calibrated engine, it's all story. You just don't have room for, you know, Phil spending time with a scarf or something. You know, it's very hard to not then. You know, the narrative has a kind of demand level, which I find in some ways exciting, in some ways later. You know, you love it as a narrative when it's going on and on and on, and you get to the end and you think, oh, that's kind of empty. You know, great, good story energy, but I didn't get anything out of it and learn anything about the characters, or, you know, it didn't really take me on a very deep ride. So for me, I enjoy you just trying to figure out what's the correct engine for this kind of story.
Well, it's a beautiful engine, having rewatched it.
I mean, and this one does change, you know, like it's you know, we just have to trust that, you know, we're laying down the groundwork really for his, for Phil having set up his own demise, you know.
And then the beautiful scene, and you'll know the dialogue correct, but it's, my father said I was too strong.
Yeah.
And then the beautiful moment when Phil is like,
oh, that's too strong?
Yeah.
Got that wrong.
Yeah. That really felt like you dig in.
Yeah, that's a beautiful
I
scene
love that
in
moment.
the book, and it's such a gentle little scene, and you think, what's in this scene? Well, I tell you what's in that scene. The whole story's in that scene. The whole story, and it's one of my favourite scenes in the book, and, you know, it just fell out perfectly, and it was like, I don't know, we probably shot about 5 minutes that day, in not very long time, you know. And you know, when a scene or the work has that beautiful flow, I mean, it's the whole rabbit thing, the rabbit hiding the injured one, the way the boy disposes of it, Phil's sort of respect, shock, surprise, is of that capacity. And then that sort of beautiful conversation where the two men, or two boys men, you know, share for the first time, probably the first conversation we've heard in the whole movie. And they actually, Phil shows some compassion for him, at the same time winding him up about his mother, you know.
Well, the stuff about the alcoholism, and then the beautiful stuff about that he took his father down. That seems to be the thing that hits Phil the most, right? That he took the father down from hanging himself. Yeah. And then the blood that you did so beautifully on the grass.
On the grass, yeah, from Phil's hand, yeah. So I mean, that's sort of setting up the wound, yeah.
And you stay on that for quite a while. I
Yes,
mean, in a good way.
that looks bad, Phil.
Well, and I even think, because he just stares at the wound, because he knows that that's the opportunity.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, it's very brave of him. I guess he doesn't really, like the mother sets up the real opportunity, by removing all the hides and setting off Phil's temper tantrum, and then, there's no hides left to finish the rope except the one he's got.
Right. Just to talk about
The
Kirsten,
poison chalice, yeah.
which is beautiful. Is there more to say about that? Because it's so amazing when he sinks his hands into the water, and you go underwater, and the audience probably didn't know, right, that there was arsenic in it, right?
You know something though, right?
Yeah.
It's gone pink, and you just, I don't know, you must know it means it has to in a story like this, it's going to mean something.
And Kristen, time to go to them?
Yeah.
Okay, one more, and then we'll go to the audience. Her face is extraordinary and profound in a sense of, it's just a source of...
Talking to Kirsten?
Yes.
Yes.
Source of humor and pain. Like when she goes and she's drunk and she goes out when the hide, and she's got the gloves. I mean, talk about her. It's just...
Just fall in love with Kirsten more deeply every day.
Yeah.
She's an actor who I've loved since seeing her in Virgin Suicide. Sophia's beautiful work. It's like that tragic quality that it's almost like a Gina Rollins or in a young person sort of feeling thing that she has of that sort of fated beauty. And I think as Kirsten gets older, it's just more profound in a way, more touching, more homely even, and the homely, loving, feminine presence of her, the trustiness, the goodness that she seems to have. It hurts me that she's so gaslit and betrayed by Phil. And I think that Kirsten just has these qualities so perfectly, and she's, Kirsten's always true. It's just, like in all our rushes, you don't see anything that's not true. It's pretty rare. It's very rare. I don't know, Melancholia is another example of extraordinary work, I don't know if people here have seen Melancholia. And the other thing, Kirsten has the same birthday as me.
Oh, great.
Not yet, and so does Lars von Trier.
When is your birthday?
Trivial fact, April 30th. Anyone else here April 30th?
And I want to get to the audience, but she's unselfconscious too about her body, and that's what, particularly in that scene when she goes out after the hides, and you can see her breasts, and she's just her gown, and her dress.
I just think she doesn't give a damn. At this point, she's like, fuck Phil. I'm going to give those hides away. Was he going to burn them? And I think there's this feeling like, that little Indian boy is the same for her as her boy, and that, why should those people be treated badly, They need something. I've been poor, they're poor. They can have them, It's my husband's farm too, all right.
So we agree with her, but we're terrified for what she's going to
come into it. I just don't think she gives a damn. That's one useful thing about the alcohol at that point.
But she does want to have some strength in his face, right? Why else would she go to the effort to do that? Isn't it a kind of...
I didn't know she could manage that in front of Phil.
Yeah.
But she does the thing which triggers his aunt, which is give away the hides, temper tantrum, and the whole thing spills out. And I love that she does that. And then George becomes aware of her drinking, and
Was there anything that you said to Kodi? He's so transformative. Like he starts out. There's versions of. we want to be careful about the word sissy, but that was a term that was used. But his transformation is extraordinary. Did you shape that much? How did that come about?
It's really beautiful hearing Kodi talk about it, because, he says that I really pushed him.
What would you say
I
you pushed him to do?
pushed him to change his preparation style, like to open up about it more, to let me support him, to give a shake around. He says, oh, I've got my method, my dad taught me, and, like, why do you need your dad to teach you, You could figure it out yourself. Maybe there's other people that could help you other than Daddy, So like that, but
Sounds like you pushed him. We want to hear more about this technique.
He says he was really grateful in the end because sometimes you need a push, and I suggested he works with some Alexander technique people to try to just really not just to add something, but to get the walk however he had it described in the book, as a stiff-legged walk, and to really explore that in his body, not something you put on top, and to find a way that it feels essentially him. And Kodi actually is kind of genius, human. He's got a lot of philosophical ideas, and I used to love winding him up about them too, and listening to him because he's so interesting. It's like his view of opposites and truth, good and evil, fate. And at one point I did a very complicated voiceover which was just really for Kodi's beliefs in the world. In the end it was so complicated you couldn't remember it. So I did another simpler version of it which is in the film now, but Kodi's a delicate human. He's strong and himself, like Peter. He's very strong and yet very delicate. And he also finds everything very funny. He loves winding us all up and making jokes at us as well. But in truth, I didn't really feel I did very much. I really felt it was all there with him.
Yeah, you probably did a lot more than maybe you even realized.
Yeah, I feel like I befriended him. Like I would have him over for dinner quite often on the Sunday, when people, he's a kid really, by himself. And I didn't like people to be lonely, and I enjoy his company. So he'd come over and eat with us and just chat and laugh. I think it's just, a lot of it is about getting to that place where you were close enough and they trust you enough, there's enough trust in the room to be experimental, to try things, to be unafraid of failing together. Because, I think a lot of directing is about failing again and again and again. If you think about how much you shoot and how much you keep, I don't know what everyone's ratio is, but usually it's like 30 to 1, so, 29 times you didn't do it so well, and 1 time it worked,
I don't want to share her, but I will. So if anybody has a question.
What's the biggest thing that surprised you while you were filming?
Oh, that's a good question. What was the biggest thing that surprised me? The impact of the pandemic on our shoot.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit. It's probably gone on quite long now already, but okay, all right. Well, when it happened, we just finished our exteriors, and honestly, I was so relieved. I thought, what can go wrong now? We were shut down, and it was such a remarkable and terrifying moment, kind of exciting, but also deadly for the world. And I mean, I know in America people suffered terribly badly, but I honestly thought that might be it for the film, and I think that was a reasonable thought at the time. Nobody knew what the future was. And in New Zealand, they took it terribly seriously. We were closed down for like 8 weeks, and then it was all gone. COVID had disappeared, and slowly people got confidence, and wrote to the ministers, and we've got to have a strategy for opening up or bringing people in, and that was all achieved finally, and we got going. But in that time, I learned to sleep, and I looked at the footage. And I learned so much, like if I could manage every shoot in that way, like to have the a 2-month gap, shoot half, have a good look and then come back. I think it would be so empowering, like that. My dear friend Kodi says, oh yeah, when you came back you really had a lot to say. And it was like, I was refreshed, I felt like, oh, that's what we did well, that's what we didn't do so well, I want more of this and not so much of that. I did feel like I've got a really sharpened perspective on what I want to do, and I really recommend actually, if you do have an interior shoot, an exterior shoot, an obvious reason, to at least fake a reason to have a break.
A mutation, right?
Yeah.
Another pandemic.
Yeah.
What do you remember what the kind of big paradigm shift was by taking that time off when you came back?
Well, for one thing, like I figured out the end of the film. Like previously, he just went back to making his paper flower. He made a beautiful rose for Rose out of a paper flower. But later I went like, I don't think so. Having seen some of the exterior shoot with Ben and Kodi, I felt that there was more going on, like that actually Phil had an impact on Peter. It wasn't just a touche thing, got your big boy. It was that Phil choosing Peter and bringing him close was a big compliment for a boy like him. And I think that he enjoyed that. I think that helped him, gave him attention, and there was love there. And, I think in a profound way, that Phil was going to probably be Pete's Bronco Henry.
That came through very much. So what I recall is this.
So therefore I realised it was the rope.
Right.
That would be the object at the end, the rope that I knew was super important. I even wrote a little essay about it to share with the crew. And then I didn't even get to meeting myself till
so what was
that point.
What did you add? Was it the putting it under the bed?
Well, that he should hold it there instead
Right.
of a paper flower,
Right.
That the rope was the object of meditation, is what they made together, what symbolised their friendship, and was also the murder weapon. And also the erotic object, under the bed. The memory of what it is to be attracted to a man and a man to be attracted to you. I was guessing, yeah.
So you already had the looking through the window at the mother.
Yes, that was always going to be there.
You had that, and then
Yeah,
him
we'd already shot
turning.
that, yeah.
Him turning with that smile.
Yes,
That was always there.
yes.
But the thing that got transformed was something to do with the rope.
Yes, that's right. I mean, that was also always going to be shot on the set, But we only shot the exterior shot with with Peter looking out the window with the car and everything on the location set.
When he says the word, "you were naked,"
Naked.
that really got me this time. You see the wheels turning for him.
Yeah, that was a funny one because at one point we had a lot more dialogue in the scene, and Phil, Ben being Phil, he came in that day and said, "I'm not saying that stuff."
What did he not want to say?
And you know what, I was so pleased he said that because I had my suspicions too that, there was another page and a half of dialogue wasn't needed. And at one point I thought, I just want Johnny Greenwood's music there, this is a love scene, But I said to Ben, Phil, all right, let's get rid of most of it, but can we keep naked? and he said, all right.
It really worked.
And so it was one of those good collaborations, between myself and Phil Ben, my boss. Yeah. We had a lot of sort of funny arguments on set, like, oh yeah, that's a question. Because he was always Phil. And, I had to sort of realise that whatever he was giving me was just some full wind-up, like him sort of circling into it. So I would just back to him, oh, that's enough of that, let's just do it now, Phil. And I noticed in my body I didn't feel afraid, it wasn't like I was being threatened at all.
By him challenging you.
Yeah, no. I was just like, that's what he likes,
Have you ever felt threatened? Not physically, but like it creatively, that you didn't know when there was that dissonance?
Obviously not very often. I'm thinking that I've so learned to take the compassionate point of view towards the actor that even if they yelled at me, I would just think, oh, they're upset. I would probably say, oh, it'd be really good if you could find another way to express that. It's getting me a little agitated.
And they respond pretty well to that.
I think people do, yeah. The truth is always really helpful, you know, when you're talking to people, or, I mean, actually, Harvey and I had a fight when it comes to that, I remember now. But it was, and then we had a beautiful makeup, you know, like, and then you could, you know, it was like he said in the end, I'm sick of you telling me what to do. And I said, oh, I get that, I understand, you know, it's horrible, I'm not told to do it. And he says, I know, I'm the actor, but, you know. It was just like he'd had enough, and I think I probably told him what to do too much too. You know, I learned to shut up more. You know, I learned to let things happen more and suggest. You know. I
can't tell what the signal is because everybody has masks on. Do we have more time?
Time's
okay, that's what I thought. Well, may I just say, I met Jane over 20 years ago. I was at Columbia, and she has been such a great inspiration to me, and I'm thrilled to be able to be in conversation. Yes.